Let's go! There's the snap, there's the knee. That's one. You stand up, Jared. Put those arms in the air.
All right. Well, hey, good morning. Welcome to Rise and Grind Morning Show. As you can tell, so far I am solo. Still waiting to see if Derek is going to join this morning. But let's kick it off. It is March 26, 2024. Man, we are ever so close to the NFL draft. Just 1 month away. Starting tomorrow. And I think it's going to be exciting. Part of what we talk about this morning is going to be surrounding the NFL draft. And as you can tell, my lighting's a little different this morning. Needed to tone it back just a little bit, a little bright today. But look, I'm expecting a lot of bright lights in Detroit during this draft. I really am. I think it's going to be exciting. The Detroit Lions have put it out constantly that they're expecting a very, very large crowd. And it's going to be one of the best times in Detroit in a long time. We haven't had anything supported by the NFL outside of a Monday night game since the Super Bowl was hosted by the Detroit Lions. What was it, back in 2004, I believe. So NFL draft in Detroit this year is going to be exciting. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to see what these Lions are going to do. And according to multiple sources, there are only 3 main positions that are now pegged to the Detroit Lions at their first pick, at pick 29, if they should stay there. And I'm going to read through a couple of things here, and then I'll jump into the chat. Welcome everybody in. And appreciate you guys waiting for us this morning. So since the beginning of NFL free agency, the Lions have signed cornerback Amik Robertson, defensive end Marcus Davenport, and defensive tackle DJ Reader. They also traded for cornerback Carlton Davis and re-signed fellow cornerbacks Khalil Dorsey and Emmanuel Mosley. But I don't think that the Lions are done just yet. There could be some considerations with some free agents that are still available and some holes that the Lions are still trying to fill prior to free agency. I'm just not expecting any of the big splash players at this point. But with those players added to the 2024 roster, the Lions have kind of opened up positional versatility and flexibility, which we know Brad Holmes covets the most. And being able to walk into a draft with being wide open with who you can take really leaves them in a good position. I think they're in a much better position this year than they were last season at this time. But anyway, with those players added to the 2024 roster, like I said, they could target who they believe is the best overall prospect in the opening round of the draft by moving up, rather than being pigeonholed into targeting only a player for need, which we know Brad Holmes doesn't like to do. He's a best player available style of GM when he does his draft picks. And according to Chad Reuter, he has the Lions selecting Darius Robinson at pick 29, which is not one of the 3 positions that the Lions have been pegged to take in their opening round, which would be wide receiver, cornerback, or offensive line. So I found this interesting. So I wanted to walk down this rabbit hole just a little bit and read a couple of things that Chad Reuter had to say about Robinson. And he started off by saying that Robinson had displayed his versatility in Missouri's scheme last year, often standing up at 285 pounds. The Lions would likely use him in a similar fashion across from Aiden Hutchinson. And entering the 2024 draft, Robinson's biggest strength, obviously, is his physical tools, including the incredible force he can create with his body. And then, according to Lance Zierlein, who had a moment to touch base on this subject, he said right out of the gate, Robinson's physical attributes should give him a potential advantage in head-to-head matchups. He has, and he used the word jarring power in his hands and a twitchy upper body to get rid of blockers. Robinson's power and motor increase the chances he becomes a good starting base end who reduces inside on third downs. As strong as Robinson is, the concern with him, though, is his over-reliance on his strength. Zuraline and Bleacher Report's Matt Holder have significant questions about his athleticism, which is honestly one of my knocks, too, on Robinson. And probably the only knock is that he's not as fast, as elusive. He doesn't have a plethora of, pass rushing skills to be able to beat the tackle consistently. He doesn't have a lot of pass rush moves, but he's a big dominant force. And a lot of what you see, around the league, like a Myles Garrett, which is somebody you could kind of compare Robinson to based on his size. I mean, he's got a freak of a body, extremely wide body, long arms. He's just not as athletic as you would like to see. Can the Lions work with that? Does speed matter at the end of the day? I think that it does to a degree if you're lacking in other traits. But they go on to say that Robinson isn't a high-level athlete, which is currently limiting his pass rush arsenal. He lacks the change of direction skills to effectively turn speed to power, and he isn't quick-twitched to win the finesse moves. He shouldn't be expected to be a significant contributor as a pass rusher right away. Now, look, a lot of analysts are wrong. We get things wrong all the time. Of course, I'm the baby in this industry, but we get things wrong all the time when we analyze players and try to figure out where they fit, what team they belong to, how are they going to work within the scheme that they're going to enter in the NFL. And a lot of times we get surprised. A later round draft pick, somebody that slips down the chart, ends up showing us all up and proving everybody wrong. My question to you in the chat is Darius Robinson going to be one of those guys? Is he going to prove everybody wrong? A lot of us are high on adding the caliber of an athlete that Darius Robinson, is showing us he can be. The question is, will he be? And will he be able to utilize the power that he exudes, the force that he has within his hands, the fact that he does have a lot of power within his hands to shed blocks, and turn that into the ability of being a dominant pass rusher and developing more skill sets by ways of pass rush moves, whether it's finesse or power? I think that's the biggest question that is going to have to get answered on Darius Robinson for him to really be at the top of the chart for Brad Holmes at pick 29. But you guys know, I don't expect Brad Holmes to stay at 29 this year. I think a lot of us are expecting him to move up. And if there is a potential to move up, it's got to be in the top 20. And if that potential is not there, I think it only makes even more sense for him to move back. Of course, it all depends on who's available. And we went through a lengthy first round mock last night, about 2 hours. And we didn't do any trades. And I think that it showed us that there is a lot of availability with high caliber players at pick 29 should the picks go the way that they're projected at this point. So I found it interesting that right now the Lions are not pegged, at least by these sources, to grab a defensive end with their first overall pick. That they would rather address the wide receiver, the cornerback, and the offensive line first. So again, I think this shows me nothing more than none of us have a clue. Nobody really has a clue what Brad Holmes is going to do on day one. And I think that we like it that way. I think that the surprise, it kind of does two things for us. One, we're extremely excited when we get a player that we hoped we were going to get, somebody that we thought would be an excellent match. And then on the other side, the head scratchers, the guys that you didn't know existed, or maybe shouldn't have been taken that early in everybody's mock drafts. And then that player enters the Detroit Lions offseason, and all you hear is amazing things. Like Malcolm Rodriguez in his first season. He was one of the top-rated linebackers as a rookie in his first season with the Detroit Lions. and he was relegated to a lighter role in his second season in 2023. But that still shouldn't overshadow the fact of what he was able to accomplish, even in his first game against the Eagles, where he hip checked Jason Kelsey and threw him to the ground. I think that showed that Brad Holmes knows how to find players. Doesn't matter where they are. He knows how to find players that can win. All right. So good morning to everybody in the chat. Of course, we have Better the Hunt this morning up at Adam early. Got Tracy in the house, Colby Stacy, Rick, El Torrey, J-Rod, Bruce MacArthur, Mike P. Is that still you? Bruce Morton, good morning. And let's see, Dennis Tidick, Lane Peterson, DeGoat23. It's an interesting name, new name. Welcome in this morning. DM Ray, we got Adam in the house. And who else do we have in here today? Got quite a few new names in. So if you guys have not been in the morning show with Rise and Grind Morning Show, please do us a favor and consider subscribing to the channel. This channel actually only goes live on Rocked On Syndicate. So it's at Rocked On Syndicate starting April 1st. And I think our first show is April 2nd in April. And every Tuesday and Thursday right now, we are live at 8:30 in the morning. Trying to work on a different time, though. I would like to start earlier if I could. Just don't know how that's going to work out for Derek's schedule. But if maybe we figure out some segments we can do early and then add him in, we'll talk about it and see if that's something that we can figure out. But I would definitely like to get going a little bit earlier as the season progresses. So yesterday, there was a lot of action coming out of the owners meeting in Orlando. And I guess before I get into that, if you guys are not aware, on fanatics.com, the draft hats are now available. Let me show you guys what they look like here. If you haven't had an opportunity to take a look, you know that I've got mine coming. So here you go. Black. I found that interesting. So are we going to get some black jerseys this year, you think? Think that's going to be an alternate jersey? I always like the black jerseys. I like the gray jerseys too, but I guess that's just me. So black hats. I'm loving the Michigan, logo on the left side there, or the right side, I guess. It says One Pride on it as well. Nice looking hat. So let's see. Adam, the night shows are 8 p.m. They're on 5 nights a week right now. And as we get rolling throughout the season, there will always be pop-ups, but I try to leave some room for, breaking news and things like that so that I can actually get some work done for the show. But there you go. There's your new hats for 2024. Expensive as all get out, $37.99 per hat. But you better get them quick because they do sell out pretty quick. We had a lot of issues last year trying to get hats even the week before. Thank you, Tracy, for the syndicate chat should be in here. If you guys are on the syndicate channel, send us a message. Tracy, if you see anything, if they're not able to see it or if I'm not able to see it for some reason, please let me know and invite them over here. It should all come into one chat according to the streaming, service, but we know we've had issues with chat in the past. It's an evolutionary problem, apparently. All right. So 10 takeaways yesterday, and this is coming from Tim Twentyman. So I'm going to utilize his work today to have some conversations because I think that he does an excellent job in covering, this owners meeting and really all of the interesting information that came out yesterday. I think was telling in a few areas. But also before I go much further here, there was something else I wanted to show you. And it was in the thumbnail, the little picture there on the right. I was looking through rules yesterday and I was looking for some information and I stumbled across this never before seen page. And it just so happens to highlight your Detroit Lions on the rules page on football operations with the words bent but not broken. And it's the Lion. I don't even know who that is in the picture. I can't see it. Speaking with a ref, Chicago game. So, what's that all about? I get it that, they're probably trying to use a team, but We know that the Detroit Lions have always been the brunt of all the jokes, all the bad rules, even with this year, trying to get an investigation done into the Brad Allen call, which the NFL just came out and boldly said, piss off. We're not doing anything about it. You were the ones that were in the wrong. You tried to deceive us and it backfired. So it's your fault, which is BS. So I noticed this and it kind of floored me for a minute. Like, are they trolling us? Is the NFL really trolling the Lions? I don't know. I'll leave that up for you guys. So interesting that I found that yesterday. I always find some nuggets, man. All right, so yesterday, 10 takeaways from Rod Wood's media session. I thought this was a great article by Tim Twentyman. Right away, new uniforms are coming, and it was released that they will be out before the draft. And I found that interesting also because, I mean, what a better day to release the new uniforms, but on draft day with an excited crowd of mostly Detroit Lions fans in the city of Detroit. I mean, I could only imagine the marketing ideas that could be going on there. I mean, they could have a giant uniform that, unfolds, from one of the big buildings there in the Maritime Square. But hey, I guess the Lions have other ideas. They're going to release it a different way. And, maybe their marketing team needs some more ideas. I don't know. But the Lions will be rolling out new uniforms right before the draft. Wood said that they honor the past with a look to the future, and said he was extremely happy with the final results, which was a process years in the making. And to quote him, he says, "I think the fans are going to be really excited about it." Wood didn't want to say too much before the reveal in April. So April obviously is when they're going to come out, but did mention the new uniforms will honor the franchise's traditional colors with a little updating and a twist. So pretty cool. I think that we're all looking forward to the new uniforms. Uh-oh. Shit. 1 second. There we go. Yeah, exactly. If you're not trying to deceive your opponent, it might as well be a scrimmage game. Exactly. Exactly. I think that, the game of football has always been about deception. I mean, that's like the number one thing you're trying to do. I mean, that's why you're scheming up all these different plays. You're trying to stay hidden in what you're trying to do so that the other team can't figure you out. So second thing here on Tim Twentyman's article is the decision to release Cam Sutton. Now, this one kind of blew me away yesterday, like really blew me away. I could not believe that Cam Sutton was in the building at the time that this warrant was released on the 20th of March. Chats are not merging. Well, that's lovely. Let me pull the other one open. I don't want to leave them alone today. You're supposed to come right into this chat on my side. I should be able to see it. Let me pull it open real quick. Okay, so the people that I have in the other side, I have Rick, L. Torrey, Tracy, Dennis Tidick, Lane Peterson, Brent. Looks like those are the only people in the other chat, and I see all of them on my side. Tracy, maybe you just don't see them on your side. So Dennis Tidick just said zebras sucks. And I see that on the other side. I think I'm good. I think I'm okay. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I think for you, Tracy, you'd probably have to pull both of them open. You'd have to go to the each channel and pull both of them open. But if you watch them Well, from the streaming service. I mean, I can always probably give access to people from the streaming service too. All right. So anyway, the decision to release Cam Sutton. The Lions learned of the warrant issue, according to the Lions, for Sutton by the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in Florida on one count of the domestic battery by strangulation, the same time that everyone else did when the warrant was revealed on Twitter or X. Woods said the team talked to Sutton and suggested he get legal counsel and turn himself in. After, quote, after we met the rest of the day and the following morning decided to release him, Woods said. It was a difficult decision, but was the right decision, and we're moving on. The Lions released Sutton on a post-June 1 designation, which means they'll be able to spread his cap hit over the next 2 seasons. Which, look, that's a smart business play. I don't think that anything should be made of, or made light there about the Lions and how they're trying to lessen the impact of Cam's impact on the team. So whatever they have to do business-wise, they have to do, and that's smart. You can't let a player hold your team hostage with cap implications. It's a lot of money. They invested in him, and he did not invest enough in himself because Cam so far has shown the world who he really is, and it's really unfair to his teammates. It's unfair to the victim. Quite honestly, it's unfair to himself. He should hold himself up higher and have better regard for the actions that he takes as he walks on this earth. So I still wish nothing Cam but the best. I just wish that he would help himself out and the victim out by putting an end to this madness and just getting it done. But I couldn't believe that Cam Sutton was actually in the building working out. And this is why I was working so hard on trying to get answers for you guys and get some questions answered by the sheriff's office. Because when they said that Cam's vehicle was picked up by the flock cameras, I wanted to know who was driving that vehicle. I wanted to know if they had pictures of Cam driving the vehicle. Now, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office quickly retracted those statements. So those statements were written by David Burkett and some other sources on the internet where they quoted the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department as stating his vehicle was picked up on multiple flock cameras. And when I spoke to the chief's communication officer, Amanda Granite, down there in Florida, she said, I never said that. Who said that? And wanted me to get her the information on where that information was coming from. So I sent her some articles and I said, these are the answers that I'm trying to get answered, or these are the questions that I'm trying to get answered, because now that we know a week later that he was actually in Michigan. So when did his car get picked up on these cameras? Was it him driving it? Is there foul play? Is there something else going on here? And we don't have those answers. I don't know if we're ever going to get those answers because I don't know how much more time I'm really going to spend on it, to be honest with you. But I at least wanted to get the facts because the facts are the most important. And there was too many questions and it did not make any sense as to what, and it still doesn't make any sense as to what's going on. But the fact that he was here and he was working out, man, that opens up a whole can of what ifs and a lot of questions that people are going to have now. Like, did he talk to anybody while he was here? Did he say anything? I mean, is he just acting like everything was normal? Was Cam ever even in Florida? I mean, that's an honest question. And again, I'm not defending him. I'm not trying to make light of the subject. I think that for all victims involved, they deserve their peace and privacy. And hopefully it just becomes water under the bridge at some point. And I don't mean that lightly. I mean to get this thing figured out so that everyone can move on. Number 3 on Tim Twentyman's article here, contract extensions for Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, and Chris Spielman. So Wood said that this was something that was on his mind and Sheila Hamp's mind during the season. And again, I think that speaks volumes that they don't want to do anything during the season. They don't do it with players. They're not doing it with coaches. But before I get into that, let me jump into the chat this morning. We'll walk back here to the uniforms. DM Ray says, yeah, the new uniforms, they added more white as far as stripes and outlines goes. DM Ray, I'm not sure. Are you saying that you know what the uniforms look like? If you do, I'd be curious as to how you know. Let's see here. Rick says, if you're not trying to deceive your opponent, it might as well be a scrimmage game. We talked about that one already. King SJ, good morning. And the whole Cam Sutton thing by Mike P says has gotten strange with Sutton being in Detroit, and then Tomlin telephoning Sutton. Tomlin? Interesting. Who? Are you talking about Mike Tomlin, the head coach of Pittsburgh? I didn't hear about that. I'd like to know more about that. Yeah, Rick, we're all kind of just over it today. Yeah, to your point, El Torre, the accusations are what they are. And to any victim standpoint, they need to be held accountable. All sides do, whether they're making a claim, but you have to be able to treat it with integrity in this situation where whatever happened, you have to believe them at some point or to a point, and then all sides need to come out with their stories, and that's where you let the law do what they do and figure it out. There has to be some evidence somewhere. There always is. So anyway, Wood said that they were the contracts between the three, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, and Chris Spielman, were a little off kilter because Dan had one more year than Brad, and I wanted to get that aligned. So we gave Brad 2 extra years. We gave Dan 1 extra year, and then revamped and redid their contracts for the last couple of years, which I'm assuming means they got a nice little bump in pay. Wood said that the moves provide continuity. Teams that have been successful year in and year out in the NFL have continuity at the top. That's the approach we're going to pursue. So here's another thing about the contracts, and this is just my wild guess. I don't know this for sure, but I have a feeling that Goff's extension is going to match Brad and Dan's contracts length of time. So 2027, which would be a 3-year extension. And that's what I've been thinking was going to be the deal this whole time, was a 3-year deal. I'm sure they're pushing for a 4-year deal, meaning the agent. Heck, they could even be pushing for a 5-year deal for all we know. But I do believe that they're going to try to match at least Brad and Dan's contract. Again, for continuity purposes, I think it makes sense that, you've invested into a team, a coach and a quarterback, which, those are your top positions. The quarterback and the coaches, those are the top positions that have to stay, consistent to be able to keep a team, moving along and getting better year over year. Those are the ones that make the most sense, as long as your quarterback is good. And I think we all agree that Jared Goff's pretty darn good. Adam, to your question, how much do NFL coaches make? It's pretty spread out. You've seen some coaches, making as high as $15 million a year. And you'll see a lot of coaches that are making, $3-4 million a year. I think it was reported back in the day that Dan Campbell's probably in that $6 to $7 million a year range. I'll look into it, though. I'm not going to do it this morning, but I'll look into it. And then maybe the next morning show, we'll have some answers for you. I think that coach contracts are one of the deals that they just don't get put out there as quickly as others. And information is typically a little bit harder to find. But look, we've even seen offensive and defensive coordinators make more than head coaches in this league, because they are so well respected for what they do. So Mike Tomlin claimed that he spoke to Sutton, but wouldn't say what was said and said it was no one else's business. Okay. My question is, how did he reach out to him if Cam doesn't have a phone? Was this before the 20th, after the 20th, on the 20th? I'm going to have to dig into that later. I just want to know. So on the NFL draft, look, the Lions are expecting number 4 here by Tim Twentyman, that Detroit is expecting a huge turnout. Would encourage that if you plan on attending, to stay up to date with the traffic patterns and the draft footprint, so you know where to be, when to be there, and you know where to park. And I'll just tell you from being at many games, this is going to be nuts because this is all outside. So there is going to be up to 100,000 people potentially on the streets. And one, I mean, you got to be safe, right? You got to make sure that you're protected. Stay in your groups. Detroit is a very, very awesome place to be. I've never worried about my safety, but I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't. You should always be, on your P's and Q's and head on a swivel, as they like to say. But I don't expect any issues. I've never had any issues. Detroit's a wonderful place. I will say that parking is going to be a nightmare. So if you haven't already and you plan on purchasing, tickets, to park in a ramp or something, it's going to be a very long time by the time you get in and out of there. My suggestion and what I like to do is I will stay at a hotel that's 20, 30 minutes outside of Detroit, and then I will Uber my way into town. And that way I don't have to worry about the mess. I can, have a meetup point for an Uber that is a little bit outside. You might have to walk a mile or two or ride the little mopeds around that they have. Those are great ways to move around Detroit. If you're comfortable being on one of those little two-wheeler mopeds, little bikes that they have, the scooters, those are great ways to get around the town, save your feet a little bit, and then catch an Uber back to a hotel outside of the city. It's going to be very difficult to find anything in town. I had a really nice place for the night of the draft, and they canceled me because they figured out it was draft night. And what was a $300 room is now $1,800 a night. So that was my biggest reason as to why I didn't know if I was going to go, because, I mean, everything was sold out that was in town. So that means now I'm going to have to stay out of town. And I really didn't want to do that because with the podcast and everything going on there, I really wanted to be right there to be live with everything going on with the window open, right above Maritime there, over top of Draft Center. So it would have been fun. Go crash Derek's live show. What are we talking about there? Not following you there. Is Derek on somewhere right now? No, he said he had to be on. Oh, I got what you're saying. You're talking about his draft show? Yeah, well, we've got live shows the day before, the day of. We do it all 3 days too. I just don't know if I'm going to be in Detroit for the main event, which is going to limit what I'm able to do. I was not able to secure a place in Detroit to do the podcast, which is what I really wanted to do. Was one of the local bars there. I really wanted to be in one throughout the event, and or outside in a tent set up for some of the days after the opening night. And it was just too difficult to get set up. And there was all these additional licenses and everything else that you really needed to get. And it was just becoming a mess. Maybe the next time we have something in Detroit, we'll be able to do that, but it would have been fun. Yeah, you definitely have to get the NFL Pass or One Pass app to sign up. So number 5, ticket price increase. I found that this was an interesting statement, that the decision to raise ticket prices wasn't taken lightly. Well, in my opinion, it must have been to a degree, because they went from bottom of the league to top of the league overnight. The Lions ranked 31st in average ticket price last season. Well, you also ranked average 31st in the league for the last 40 years. So I think that ticket prices were commensurate to the product on the field, and that's the way it should be. The price or the decision to raise the prices in the offseason leaves them just under the league average now, is what Rod Wood had to say. And here's what he had to say. He said, it's really where the market is. We've had 96% renewal rate. So nobody has really abandoned their tickets. We still have, I think it's approaching 20,000 people on the wait list. Well, wait list doesn't really mean anything, Rod. I mean, it doesn't mean that people are actually going to go through with it. It just means that they have interest. And we've been very cautious over the years recently, not increasing the prices, and have really fallen quite a bit behind the league average. And this barely catches us up to just below the league average, which I don't believe any of that. I'm sorry. I've looked at the pricing, and we're more expensive than Baltimore. So Baltimore's had a really good, decade or so, and their prices have not gone crazy. And with 65,000 seats roughly, if they've retained 96%, then that means they probably lost around 3,000 season ticket holders this last year. I mean, which is not terrible, but at any rate, I mean, they went up 30% or more across the board. I mean, some people paying 200%, and that's just too much. I think that they should have done it a little differently. And they definitely should allow people to sell tickets and not have to worry that, they're going to get their tickets yanked because they decided to sell some games or something to help, absorb the cost. And, the secondary market prices is not where these tickets should be. I think that the Lions would have been smart to, allow Lions to transfer, trade, sell tickets between members first as an option, develop their own site to do it, so that you can transfer between members and sell tickets between members first, as opposed to the open public. Maybe that's just an extra perk, is, to be a loyal member. If you wanted extra seats to a game, that you could go on a members list and be able to find tickets. Again, their marketing department could probably use a few ideas. Just saying, I got plenty. Hey, good morning, Man Bear Pig. How you doing today? So schedule requests for 2024. Last year, as we know, Rod Wood was very active with the NFL, trying to make sure that the 2023 schedule was in line with their interests, and making sure that they had, a commensurate amount of home games together. They wanted to, have their bye week at a certain area, because we've always seemed to have too early of a bye week. I prefer to have a late bye week, as late as possible in the season, but definitely after the midway point. With 9 home games this year and 8 away games, it would be great if we could have a bye week after week 9. Somewhere closer even to Thanksgiving even. I can't remember how far the bye weeks go. I think they go into week 13, if memory serves me right. But I do believe when you play on Thanksgiving that this schedule could be worked out in a way that no team ever has to play 2 games in 4 days or 2 games in a week. It does not have to be that way. I think that the way that the NFL has scheduled those games for decades now has been atrocious. There is a way that it can get done. I've looked at it myself, and there's no reason in the world why you should ever, if they care about player safety the way that they do with this stupid hip drop tackle, don't let these players play 2 games in 4 days. Come on. That is the biggest safety factor, is you got these guys out there crushing their body twice in 4 days. That to me is the most stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And they keep doing it year after year after year. So if they truly care about player safety, add an extra week to the season, add an extra bye week, and make it happen. It is not going to hurt you. This company makes billions and billions and billions of dollars over billions and billions and billions of dollars. An extra week is not going to hurt you. If anything, it'll probably help them make more money. You can fill those weeks with extra events, or, you keep your players healthy, and more people tune in when their team is healthy. It's a fact. You're not going to go watch a team as much as you would if they're all injured and they barely have a chance to win versus a team that's healthy and has a chance to win. Who are you going to watch more? I think the answer is pretty simple there. J-Rod says, I unfortunately have not been to a game under the new Lions. Big D, I don't mean Detroit Impact. All is good, though. So, J-Rod, you haven't been to a Lions game yet? We're going to be doing some giveaways this year, whether it's preseason tickets, training camp tickets, even regular season games. We'll be doing some giveaways. So those, I mean, obviously we're going to have very strict criteria, on how to win those events, but we definitely want to be part of the bridge between fans and watching a game. I've been to hundreds of games, and I think that there's nothing more important as a fan than to actually live through the process at least once. You at least got to see it once, whether that's home or away. And we're going to do some away game stuff, away game tickets and home game tickets. We're trying to put a bus together. Once we get the schedule, I'm trying to put a bus of 50 people together that we can travel to away games. We'll have a block of tickets at an away stadium as much as possible, at least. I mean, the earlier we do it, the better. And so that would be a great way for you to get involved. One, we'll split up all the costs between everybody. We'll get a big break on tickets. You won't have to drive. That way you can enjoy yourself if you enjoy, drinking or whatever you want to do. That way you don't have to worry about driving. If it's a long game, we'll put a hotel stay in between. But those are the types of things that we're trying to do, with Rocktown Podcast Network, is we're trying to bridge the gap between the fan and the team. And how can we help travel to more games away? Because that's where we're really needed. I mean, as you can tell, the home games, they're loaded. Like it is a far cry for any away team to be able to, penetrate the Detroit Lions Ford Field. It's just not going to happen. That place is packed out with Honolulu Blue. It's super important to us as fans that we do not allow the away team in there as much as possible. You might get 10% of, filtration of other teams in there, but that's about it. That's about all I've seen the last couple of seasons. So as long as we're not losing a bunch of games, expect it to be packed out with your loyal Lions fans. So the schedule request, where I started with, was Wood has been very transparent in the past with the conversations he's had with the league when it pertains to the schedule. He said that he had no complaints about last year's schedule. He said that he only had one real request for 2024, and that's for the bye week to be in the middle part of the season like it was last year. I think that's a great point. I think that it really helps the Lions to stay healthy. I mean, I think that all teams would benefit. I mean, what would be so bad, if all teams just had the same week off in the middle of the season, and then you had an extra bye week, throughout the season, maybe in the beginning and at the end, that they could split up. I don't think that would be a bad idea at all, especially around a holiday. Maybe it's Thanksgiving where you've only got 3 games on anyway on Thanksgiving. Just give everybody that week off. Make it easy on everybody. I think that would be an incredible gesture by the NFL, but I think it would also help with injuries and game planning, for scheduling purposes. Yeah, we go to Dallas again this year. Again. Oh no, did it just get approved, Rick? The new kickoff rule? Man, that's going to be interesting. Yesterday it wasn't, so they must have voted on it this morning. I haven't seen anything pop up yet. Let me see if I can grab it. Oh, goodness. Yep, 3 minutes ago per Adam Schefter. And Dan Miller here says, Dan Campbell, all for this change. Interesting. Designed to bring the kickoff return back. Campbell said it would bring excitement and also allow them to play special teams, which obviously we know the Lions love special teams. I mean, there's a reason why we have Jalen Reeves-Maybin back on this team. Has already been working with coordinator David Phipp on ways to take advantage of the change. Why does that not surprise me? Dan Campbell is so smart, man. The dude is just, For everybody that thought that he was a meathead, I don't think that they think that anymore. I think that people fear Dan Campbell now for his intelligence. I mean, I think some people balk a little bit about the fourth down calls and what they consider aggressive behavior. But I don't think it's reckless. I think that he's just aggressive. I think that he wants to win, and he's going to pull out all the stops to win. So interesting change of events. Thank you. Who was that this morning that just brought that in here? Who was it? Was that Rick? I think it was Rick. So thank you, Rick, this morning for helping us break the kickoff rule news. Here, let's do it right. Let me pull this up here. Oh, I can't do it. Never mind. I was going to try to break the news with the old breaking news intro, but I've got so many intros loaded, I can never figure out which one's which. All right, so number 7 on Tim Twentyman's article from yesterday, and it's talking about international marketing deals. So we saw a graphic yesterday of where the Lions are heavily targeted in Canada, Switzerland, and Germany. And I didn't make in Austria, and I did not make the connection with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Germany. I mean, for all intents and purposes, Austria. So the Lions sat on the sidelines with all of these international marketing deals, which means that they were presented with options to market the team across the ponds, and they decided to hold back over the last few years. But Wood said that they wanted to watch the other teams interact and how these deals came to fruition and how they worked and how they benefited the organizations. And he had this to say. He said, obviously, Canada is a natural given the proximity to the Detroit Lions. With Germany and the number of games being played there, and particularly with Amon-Ra St. Brown's popularity, it's kind of a natural thing to draft off of his popularity and vice versa, because I know that he wants to do some things over there. St. Brown's mother is German, speaks fluent German. Wood said that the team is overdue to play a game internationally and expects to do so soon, if not this year, with Chicago and Minnesota having some home games in London. So I thought that there was no potential this year that we were going to have a game outside of the U.S., but it sounds like that's still on the table. And I think that, we are due. I don't really care for it, but I think it is what it is. I mean, we all have to experience it. I would love to go to a game over in a different country and be able to experience it. Maybe that'll happen this year. Maybe it won't. We'll see what happens. The Cowboys controversy was number 8, and this was a big one for me. I did a video on it the other day, which, I mean, everybody watched it. I mean, there's over 12,000 hits on it the last I looked. Wood was in charge. So Rod Wood was in charge of contacting the league and speaking to them following the eligible reporting incident at the end of the Dallas game late last season. He called Executive Vice President of Football Operations, Troy Vincent, at 9 a.m. this past Sunday, but Vincent was at church. He received a call back at 10 a.m. Wood's response, I thought this was hilarious. Did you pray for better officiating? Is what he had to say to Troy Vincent. Vincent's response, I always do. The two talked, but really nothing came of it. As I reported the other day, the NFL took a hard stance on this. They said that the Detroit Lions were involved in deception, gamesmanship. It backfired, and the Detroit Lions were the fault for what happened. And the bad call, no call, missed call by Brad Allen. I don't believe that at all. I think that Brad Allen was at fault. Brad Allen missed the meeting before the game. Brad Allen rushed on the field, didn't slow down. There was no need to speed things up. We know that Dan Skipper was never even close to Brad Allen to be able to report. Two guys, Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, were standing in front of Brad Allen doing their report or non-report. I don't think it could be any more clear. I think that the NFL is trying to stay as far away from controversy as possible because something is going on there. Somebody is at fault. It was a high profile game for Dallas. And the other team, someone brought this up the other day. The other team that has not won a conference championship. Now, I haven't gone, according to this source, this individual that was in the chat or in the comments the other day. Now, I didn't go and look at this. Let's look at it now, actually. Let me see here. So I don't think that this individual is right because they said that the Cowboys were the only other team that have not won a conference championship in the Super Bowl era. And I don't believe that that's correct because they clearly won one in 96. Super Bowl era started in 66. So I didn't understand that comment. But at any rate, I think that it doesn't go unnoticed here that they wanted the Cowboys in that game. They wanted the Cowboys, to have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl again, put that team back on the map. It's been a long time. It's been over 30 years since they've also won, a conference championship, or almost 30 years. I think maybe that was more of the point that they were trying to make, is that the Cowboys have been out of it just as long as the Lions. I mean, the Lions haven't been in it in a long time. I mean, extremely long time. So, yeah, it wasn't possible. I don't know why I wasn't putting the two connections there together. But at any rate, I think that this Cowboys controversy it's done. It's over. We can't look back on it. It's all going to come to fruition again once this Cowboys game happens again this year. The difference is I plan on being in Dallas this time, and we'll just see how crazy it's going to be. It's going to be a hostile environment, like really hostile. And I still think it's going to be a fun game. I think that we're going to kick the snot out of them. Absolutely. Depending on what goes down with Dak, who knows if the Cowboys will even have a quarterback, that's worth anything by the time this game happens. We have no idea. So anyway, the NFL took a hard stance against Rod Wood and the Detroit Lions. They are not going to investigate it further. They're not going to propose any rules changes. And I think that that's the biggest mistake. I think that there needs to be a more clear way to report. I think that it can be simplified. And I won't go into it right now. I did go into it in a video last year during the process. And it could be simplified, to the point of where there is no confusion. Absolutely no confusion. And the biggest thing that I will say is to all the people out there, especially the Cowboys fans that like to come in and troll every once in a while, that keep saying, well, if they would have just told Dallas the right person that, was reporting eligible, they would have covered him. And Taylor Decker would have never caught the pass. Here's my response. You have a defensive coordinator, a defensive assistant, and multiple assistants beyond that on the defensive side of the football, whose number one job is to look at the offense alignment. Now, if I can figure it out, and I'm not some defensive NFL genius, but if I can look at a formation and say, wait a second, that's not right, and he's obviously the eligible one, then they should. And the most important position on the opposing team is going to be your middle linebacker, whoever's the green dot, whoever's calling the plays and getting the defense in order. That's the individual that needs to be able to read the offensive formation and then communicate that to his defense to say, Taylor Decker's eligible because of the way that he's lined up and because of the way that this person's uncovered and that person's covered and so on and so forth. That's how you're supposed to do the game of football. That's why the Lions did what they did, because they're expecting to beat the other team at the game, to be more prepared. If you were just to go in and line up, I think that that's the way that it should be. Now, to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, I think that you shouldn't have to report at all. I think that, it's mano, y mano. It's, I'm better than you. I'm going to come in and kick your butt, and I'm going to do it because I'm smarter and more prepared. So we're going to go up and line up. We're going to hike the ball, and we're going to run the play. And we're just going to do it better than you. Why should we have to report who we're about to throw the ball to give you a chance? I think that that's completely asinine. I don't think that they should have to do that at all. I think that the refs should be intelligent enough to recognize that the play was legal. And I think that the defense should be held accountable for making sure that they know who's eligible and who's not. Then you eliminate it all. No more reporting. Just go in and beat each other. Beat each other at the game that you're supposed to be prepared for. Now, if there's a question as to the alignment, well, that can be reviewable, can it? Make it a reviewable play. They can review every scoring play like they're supposed to. You go in and review it. Yep, they were lined up correctly. Taylor Decker wasn't covered up. He was eligible. He caught the pass. It's that simple. All scoring plays are reviewed anyway. That's how I feel about it. Sorry. Got a little excited there. I still get burned up, man. We should have been at home for 3 games in a row. So 2 more points here on Tim Twentyman's article. Over 1,700 players, the team report card. Over 1,700 players provided information to share with one another about their current club, to not only help them make important career decisions, but also to help raise the standards across the league. The goal is to highlight positive clubs, identify areas that could use improvement, and highlight the best practices and standards. The Lions got pretty good marks, and across the board, their lowest performing area was food service. What are they serving over there? I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar organization. Please tell me you're serving some pretty decent food. I mean, being a former executive chef in my early years, I always had like 2 or 3 jobs when I was young, going through school and, even working for my family's company when I was young. I always had another job in food service. I love food. My grandfather was a chef, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. So being a former executive chef, I know a little bit about food, man. Food's not hard. And I could only imagine that they've got some pretty darn good chefs there inside Allen Park to help these guys eat well. So this is an easy one to fix. And, hopefully they get it fixed this year. But Wood said that the team is taking the report card seriously. He said that they are a little bit landlocked in terms of what they can do to increase the size of the kitchen. They have to be creative, but they are making improvements and will continue to look at ways to improve that area of the operation. After getting low marks last year in the training staff and training room, the Lions added to their staff and doubled their training room capacity. Here's what I love about the Lions, man. Here's what I love about the Lions. Look, this team, these owners, the board, the management, their number one priority is the team. It's the players. They wholeheartedly respect what these guys say and how they feel they're being treated. This is such a huge change of events from the Quinn Tricia era, where there was nothing but problems and nobody wanted to play. They didn't even want to play, under their contract at the time, let alone come to Detroit to play. Now you've got guys flocking to Detroit. You've got players that really, truly want to come play. Whether they're a fit or not, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, and the rest of the staff will make that determination. But these Sheila Hamp, Rod Wood, Chris Spielman, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, Mike Disner, all of these people involved, and there's way more beyond them, care about this team. If you have a winning attitude inside your organization where everyone feels respected, they feel like their questions get answered, they feel like maybe if there's an issue with this, area, we can actually get it fixed, as opposed to, the other way, which is, it is what it is, deal with it. You hear that quite often. It is what it is, deal with it. Suck it up, buttercup. No, if you've got an issue, it sounds like the Lions are more apt to doing the research, finding the answers, and making it, fit everybody's needs, which is super important for continuity, chemistry, camaraderie. I mean, you name it. This team is set up in a way that they respect how every single player and personnel feels that this organization is functioning. And clearly, Rod Wood and the upper management and even the ownership feel that it's super important to make sure that, their players are well taken care of. And that, I think that speaks volumes to what Dan Campbell is too as a head coach. He is a player's coach. I mean, he's a former player. So I think that he knows, all of the things that he went through as a player and how maybe his life could have been made a little bit better. It helps with recovery time and processing things. It's not easy when you're hurt. But if you're feeling better and you're able to get better treatment, and that's why they addressed one of the biggest needs last year, which was training staff and the training room and the facility, now our players are able to get better treatment, more treatment, when you have more people available to help you gain the treatment that you deserve. So big kudos, man. Big ups to the Detroit Lions and addressing, the biggest needs on this team, which is player safety, player health, and their wellness. Which, hey, if these guys are healthy, man, they're going to win ball games. So great job by the Lions for addressing the concerns. Last topic here in Tim Twentyman's article talks about all three coordinators return in 2024. Man, I thought this was such a great topic. And he starts out by saying offensive coordinator Ben Johnson had 6 teams reach out to him. And Rod Wood knew he was a strong candidate. Here was his quote. I thought it was unlikely that he would be back. But the more I talked to Ben, and as he went through the process, I had a sense that maybe he wanted to be back. Wood mentioned that there was some unfinished business from Johnson's standpoint. And Wood said that defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn was also more interested in pursuing a head coaching opportunity. It hurt Glenn that he couldn't be interviewed during the championship game week, but it's something that Wood said he talked to the league about. I don't know the details here. I don't know what happened during this time frame as to why Glenn couldn't be interviewed. Before I talk more about Aaron Glenn, as far as Ben Johnson goes, there's been a lot of talk about Ben Johnson and what transpired with Washington. And I had Adam Aniba on, who is a Washington reporter. He covers the Washington Commanders as an independent scout. He's got a great article over there at the Burgundy and Gold Report. And I wanted to ask him some pointed questions in my interview with him about the Ben Johnson saga and what really happened. He said that he was excited if Ben Johnson was going to become the head coach. And, if memory serves me correct, there's a lot of things that get said. And maybe some things just aren't what they seem. That Ben Johnson was apparently not really lighting up the Commanders' front office as well as he probably should have to win a head coaching position. But I do believe that knowing what we know and hearing what we hear, that Ben Johnson's heart never left Detroit. And it's hard to commit to something new when you have not uncommitted from something old. If you still love what you're a part of and you want to finish what you've started, it would be very difficult for anybody to try to move on and engage in talks about a future with something else. I mean, even in relationships, right? I think it kind of goes hand in hand that when you build a good relationship, it's hard to walk away from a relationship and start something new. It's very difficult to start a new job because you've got all new things in front of you that you're going to have to get comfortable with. But I think that Ben Johnson wanted to finish what they started and felt that this year there's still an opportunity to get it to where they want to be, which is obviously hoisting a Lombardi trophy in Detroit. So I look, congratulations on Ben Johnson being heavily sought by all of these teams, and he will get a head coaching position at some point. But right now, the focus is on Detroit and to finish what they started as a team. And I think it's incredible that we were able to retain, all of these coordinators and coaches below them. But anyway, on to Aaron Glenn here. Apparently, it hurt Aaron Glenn that he was not able to be interviewed during the championship game week. I'm not understanding what happened here. I think that this rule about being able to interview these coaches during the season, especially during a championship run, I think is completely asinine. There's no reason why these teams can't wait a couple of weeks. Nothing is happening in February other than playoffs in the Super Bowl. If your team ain't in it to win it, you can wait. There's nothing that is that important. Interview the guys that are not competing, but I think that the NFL should force these teams to interview the coaches that are in the championship run after the process has taken place and they are no longer competing. Wood went on to say that there's some oddities of when you can and when you can't interview these guys. He said, Ben is an example. Had 6 teams that wanted to talk to him, and you have to interview him that wild card weekend, or you can't talk to him until after the Super Bowl. That's great. That's a great point. So you only get the wild card weekend. He couldn't even hardly fit in 6 interviews, and nor should he have been able to. There's no way that you can plan and prepare for a Super Bowl run and interview at the same time. You will not be focused. Your mind is elsewhere, 100%. So anyway, Wood said that he's happy that the continuity is in place with Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, and Dave Phipp, all leading the football side of the organization. And I think that it's an incredible testament of fortitude with this team and how they have put together the right team together. They employ the right energy, and this team is moving in the right direction. Brad Holmes is going to continue to do what he does this year in the draft. I expect nothing less from Brad Holmes than to find a couple of impact players that will help this team win. Every single draft, Brad Holmes has found players that help this team win right away. This year will be no different. I know that a lot of us disagree on who should be first, what player, the Lions should be targeting. But at the end of the day, maybe your player is not available. Maybe the guy that you really want at 29 is not there, and you have to go into a different direction. That's what best player available does. And sometimes that puts off, the notion that you're going to be able to compete at a high level in that area of need on the team for another season. You might just have to wait another season. And sometimes that happens. There's a lot of teams right now that would love to grab a quarterback in this draft, but there's only 4 or 5 quarterbacks that even make sense to draft in this draft, and you have to grab them early. And if you don't have an early pick, you're going to have to wait until next season to hopefully have another shot at getting the quarterback early, or you're going to have to make some moves to, give away some draft capital to be able to move up to grab the guy that you want. And that's always a possibility. But where do you draw the line? Do you draw the line at all costs? I need my player. Or the team's future? I'll get my player when I get him. Or is it somewhere in between? That's the question that I feel Brad Holmes is going to answer in 2024. Is he going to go in at all costs and get the player that everyone thinks that we need? Or is he going to do what he's always done and just make this team better? That's the questions. And that's it for today's show. You guys have been wonderful. Thank you for joining Rise and Grind. Again, please do us a kind favor and consider subscribing to this channel, but also at Rocked On Syndicate on YouTube. April 1st, we'll go live with Rise and Grind morning show solely over there. And hopefully, Derek will be consistent in being able to be here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then we're going to be able to open up the show, hopefully 5 days a week. I would love to start before 8 a.m. You guys let me know, with your thoughts and comments, after the show in the channel's comments, what time would you like to see the morning show start? Are you able to get in at 8 a.m.? Maybe 5 minutes before 8, we start the intro and get things rolling so that we can have a great morning. Look, I appreciate you, Colby Stacy. He says, great show, Will. I'm new, but I plan to stick around. I dig the content. So Colby, just so you're aware, we do all sorts of content, player reviews, player interviews, former coaches. We've got the morning show that we're still working on getting better. There's a lot more being added to this as far as technology that's coming here soon. We're looking for people to add to the team so we can develop, the background of this and have people helping us develop a very technical show and dive into do segments and then produce more videos and segments from every show. It takes a team. It really does. And it will get there. But we do all sorts of content, especially throughout the season, live breaking news, pregame, postgame breakdowns, live game interactions, or, live game streams where we cover the game, play by play. And there'll be more personalities joining the channel, covering Lions content as well. And hopefully, you guys will be well received of, the new individuals that do join the team. Either way, if you can't join us live, everything's always recorded and placed on YouTube for enjoyment later. And we're always open to ideas and, content that you guys want to see. Right now, I do owe a few videos to some of the loyal members of this channel, and I'll be getting some of those out here throughout the week. So we're going to focus on safeties through the rest of the week. I know that Robert Welch really wants to see a Malik Mustafa and Sion Vaki video. So we're going to start working on those next. Maybe we'll get it out today. And until the next one, appreciate you guys. Go One Pride, go Detroit Lions. And you guys take care. Have a great day.